She was swimming in a circle and she would not stop. 300 meters off the port bow. Tight circuit, maybe 20 meters across, not the wide sweep of a bear covering water, not the approach pattern of an animal heading toward the vessel. The same radius, the same speed, the same direction, repeated. Daniel had his binoculars on her within seconds of seeing the shape in the water, and he held them there and timed 3 complete circuits before he reached for the radio. Bridge. This is Hayes. Bear in the water. 2 port side. 300 meters. She's circling. Request all stop. Captain Brennan killed the engines of the MV Arctic Passage. The ship went quiet. The bear kept swimming. A polar bear is the most energy-efficient open-water swimmer in the Arctic. They do not waste movement every meter in open water, cost them calories that, in August, they cannot replace until the ice reforms in October. A bear that swims the same circle, in the same radius, without stopping, is not lost, is not panicking, is doing something deliberate. The question Daniel was asking himself is the one I want you to hold on to. What was she doing, Lancaster? Sound in late August looked nothing like the charts from 20 years ago. What had been solid pack ice through the summer was now open water from July onward, the ice field broken apart and pushed north, scattered into fragments drifting on the current. Some floes were large enough to support a bear. Some were not. Daniel had been logging the size distribution since 7 that morning. Standard protocol for wildlife observation transects in ice-diminished habitat. The smaller floes under 3 meters across sat low, edges at or near the waterline. A cub in August was 4 months old and roughly 40 kilograms. A 40-kilogram animal on a 2-meter platform at the waterline was a specific, calculably problem. He was thinking about that calculation, binoculars still on the circling bear, when he saw what he first thought was a fragment of weathered ice standing vertically on a nearby floe. It was moving wrong. He shifted focus. The shape was resolved. It was a cub, standing on its rear legs on a floe less than 2 meters across, edges at the waterline, trying to get height, the instinct of a young animal searching for something it could not find from the surface. It was looking for its mother. Its mother was 20 meters away, swimming in a circle. Daniel watched for 20 minutes before he understood. The chop in Lancaster Sound in August was continuous small, persistent wave action rolling through the broken ice field in 4 to 6 second intervals. Each wave moved the floe. Each movement shifted the cub's weight. A cub on a 2-meter platform in open chop had a timeline, and the timeline was not long, but the floe at the center of her circuit was not moving the way the surrounding ice was moving. She was swimming the same circuit, at the same speed, in the same direction, and she had been doing it long enough that Daniel could see what it was accomplishing. The floe the cub was on sat at the edge of a current line, the kind of slow lateral drift that moved through the broken ice field in August, carrying fragments from the remnant pack ice southward into open water. Left alone, the floe would have followed that drift into choppier water, into deeper open fetch, where the wave action would have destabilized a 2-meter platform within minutes. She was swimming around the perimeter, continuously. Her body in the water created enough resistance, enough counterpressure at the edges of the floe's drift path to hold it in place. Not perfectly still. Nothing in Lancaster Sound in August was perfectly still, but held. Held within a range the cub could survive. She had positioned her cub inside a boundary she was maintaining with her own body in 2-degree water, at a caloric cost she could not replace for 2 months. She had been doing this before the ship arrived. No one knows how long. The data does not say. The data only says she was still swimming when Daniel found her, and the cub was still on the floe. He got on the radio. Dr. Claire Rutherford was aboard the CCGS Investigator 12 nautical miles east, running the annual late summer marine mammal survey of Lancaster Sound. Daniel described what he was seeing in the compressed, precise language of field documentation. Rutherford listened without interrupting. When he finished, she asked one question. How long can the cub stay on that floe? Daniel looked at the floe. The cub had come down from its standing position, the correct instinct, lowering its center of gravity, but the floe was still rotating slowly under each wave cycle, working toward the edges of the calm zone the mother was maintaining. Not long, Daniel said. Get here. Already underway, Rutherford said. 47 minutes. That was the transit time from the investigator's position to the Arctic Passage. Daniel spent every minute of it at the rail, binoculars on the bear and the cub and the margins of the floe that were measurably diminishing. She did not stop circling. She did not vary her speed. She did not approach the floe or attempt to haul out onto it. Any weight added to a 2-meter platform at the waterline would destabilize it in seconds. She maintained the circuit with the mechanical consistency of something that had committed fully to a single task and was not available for any other calculation. The cub called out at intervals, 4 minutes between calls, then 3, then 2.5. The intervals were shortening. The cub was tiring, or frightened, or both. Each time it called, she answered without breaking a stroke. Each time she answered, it settled at minute 19. The cub attempted to enter. The water dropped its front paws over the edge of the floe, tested the surface. It pulled back within 3 seconds. Daniel logged it and said nothing. A cub that entered the water voluntarily at this temperature and this distance from stable ice was a cub that did not come back out on its own. At minute 31, a piece of the floe's edge calved off 40 centimeters of ice, separating cleanly and drifting south on the current. The floe was smaller than it had been when Daniel first saw it. He logged the time. He said nothing on the radio. The investigator arrived at 12:49. Rutherford was at the bow with binoculars before the vessel was fully stopped. She watched the bear complete 2 circuits without speaking. Then she lowered the glasses and looked at Daniel across the water between the 2 ships. Rigid, inflatable, she said. Downwind approach. We stay outside her circuit. The plan come alongside the floe from the east, outside the calm zone the bear had created. Take the cub off the ice without destabilizing the floe. Do not enter the area where the mother was swimming. A vessel inside her circuit would break the pattern she had been maintaining for an unknown number of hours. At this point, breaking that pattern was not something either of them wanted to calculate the consequences of. 2 of Rutherford's crew went into the water in dry suits. The inflatable approached from the east. Engine at idle. Hull low. Displacement minimal. The cub saw it coming and did what frightened young animals do. It moved to the far edge of the floe, away from the approaching shape, overriding for just a moment the physics of what it was standing on. The floe tilted. The cub went into the water. 8 seconds. That was how long the cub was in Lancaster Sound before the first crew member had it. 8 seconds in 2-degree water, long enough for it to understand what cold meant at that depth. Short enough that it did not matter medically. The crew member lifted it into the inflatable. The cub was alive. It was loud about it. The mother broke her circuit the instant the cub hit the water. She was at the inflatable in 4 strokes, the full speed of a polar bear, no longer holding herself to a controlled pace. the speed of an animal released from the one constraint she had been carrying for longer than anyone could determine. She stopped 2 meters from the hull. She did not attempt to board. She did not attempt to take the cub from the crew member holding it. She floated and looked at the cub, and the cub looked at her. And the sound between them was not something Daniel, at the rail of the Arctic Passage with his binoculars on all of it, had a professional category for. The crew member lowered the cub over the side. She had it before it reached the water. The inventory. Nose to flank. Nose to face, the systematic confirmation that everything was present and intact. The cub pressed against her with the full-body insistence of something that had been frightened for a long time and had just stopped. She treaded water and held the cub for 31 seconds. The GoPro on the inflatable recorded all of it. Then she looked at the 2 ships. Daniel had been looked at by polar bears before. He had 9 years and hundreds of individual encounters across the Lancaster Sound corridor, the disinterested glance of a bear that had decided he was irrelevant. The focused assessment of a bear that had decided he might not be. He knew what it meant when a bear looked at him. He did not know what to call this. She held the look for a moment. Then she turned north toward the pack ice that remained at this latitude and swam. The cub stayed close, one forepaw occasionally touching her flank in the way of young animals who have just learned what it costs to lose that contact. Both ships held position and watched them until there was nothing left to watch. Brennan brought coffee up to the forward deck at some point. Daniel did not remember taking it. He was at the rail until the family passed out of binocular range, which took longer than expected because she was not swimming fast. She was swimming at the cub's pace, the pace of an animal that had been at maximum sustained effort for a duration the data could not establish, and had chosen, the moment it was over, to go slower. He logged their final position at 1341. Direction of travel north-northwest, toward the pack ice. He closed the field notebook and looked at what he had written. The timestamps, the coordinates, the behavioral descriptions framed in the language that field documentation required: observable, measurable, replicably. He had written down everything he saw. He had not written how long she had been in that water before the ship arrived, because he did not know. He had not written what the circuit meant, because the literature did not have a category for it. He had not written down how she had known to keep the radius consistent, or what it was in her that had decided to stay. He looked at Lancaster Sound at the ice edge that was further north than it had been in August 10 years ago, further north than 5 years ago. Each year the boundary moving in the same direction with the same indifference. She had found a way to hold the water still. For a while, for long enough. He did not know what to call what she had done. He knew it had worked. He wrote family, direction north-northwest, good condition. Both individuals were swimming under their own power at the time of the last observation. Then he capped the pen, picked up the coffee Brennan had left, and looked north until there was nothing left to look at. There is no clean way to end a story like this. The bear swam north. The cub went with her. The ice that forced her to do what she did is still retreating measurably, annually, without exception. In the satellite record going back to 1979, Lancaster Sound is the eastern entrance to the Northwest Passage, locked in ice for most of recorded human history, open reliably for weeks each summer. Now, the shipping industry calls this opportunity. The bears that depend on that ice experience it differently. The Arctic loses approximately 77,000 square kilometers of sea ice every September compared to the 1980 average, an area roughly the size of South Carolina, gone annually. Compounding, the ice-free season in Lancaster Sound has extended by more than 3 weeks over the past 3 decades. What was pack ice in August is now open water. What was a stable platform is now a field of fragments, some large enough to hold a bear and some not. The cub in this story was on one of the ones that was not. The research, Dr. Rutherford's team runs on the investigator each summer as part of the data set that tracks what is actually happening to the animals navigating these conditions in real time. Polar Bears International funds this fieldwork and the climate advocacy that addresses what is driving it. Environment and Climate Change, Canada's ice monitoring program, produces the sea ice data that makes this research possible. Links are in the description below. If this story stayed with you, like and subscribe. It helps these stories reach people who haven't heard them yet.